the guy who helped me to get my E2 visa and be able to come to the US and start my own business with my family, my wife, and my kids legally to start and grow my business. Are you interested in starting a business in the US? Maybe you live in another country and you are like, hey, I would like to start my own business in the US and grow it very big. Are you familiar with the E2 visa, which is a great opportunity for any person around the world to come to the US legally and open their own business? I opened my business about 5 years ago, and I've been sharing on my channel who helped me to with the process. Who was the person that helped me with the entire process? And sometimes, if you are out of the country, it's very difficult to find somebody that is reliable, professional, and can really help you in a, let's say, in a reasonable price. I'm going to introduce you. This week, I recorded a meeting, an interview with my attorney, guy who helped me to get my E2 visa and be able to come to the US and start my own business with my family, my wife, and my kids legally to start and grow my business. If you are interested in that, this interview, you have to watch it because he is going to give you, and he gives a lot of information and key information for you if you're planning to apply for an E2 visa. Watch it now. Hello, everybody. So I'm right here. We're having a great time today. We have my attorney, my immigration attorney, who helped me get a E2 visa and be able to open my business in the US and start my business. And I was able to come to the US with my family and start a business here. And I want to introduce you to Bobby Chung. He's a very nice guy. He's very professional. His team, I wanted to share also that working with him was a great experience, and we'll still talk about different other options and things that I'm also doing. So we're gonna have some the most common questions that he normally gets when he works with people looking to get an E2 visa. So let me introduce you to Bobby Chung. How you doing, Bobby? How are you?
Fantastic. Great to talk with you, John.
Excellent. Thank you. Nice to see you like always. Thank you for your time. Thank you for, I know you're very busy, and thank you for your time to come to have a few minutes with us and try to help some people that I know that want to come to the US, and maybe they have the funds to, to start a business in the US, and I just want to be the link between those people and you, so they can hire a very good attorney and his team. All right. So, all right, let's start. You want to start the first question right now?
Let's do it. I'm excited.
All right, excellent. Let's do it. So, um, a very common question, and this is one of the questions that I also had at the beginning. How much do I need to invest to be able to apply and have a successful case for the need to visa approval? So you tell us, what would be that minimum investment, or how much do I need?
Happy- I'm happy to explain. This is a very important question because the E2 visa is an investor visa, and determining how much to invest is a crucial qualification factor for the E2 visa. This is a top question because the E2 visa law is super ambiguous. The law simply states the applicant has to make a substantial investment in a qualifying business in the United States. What the heck does substantial mean? It was left ambiguous because U.S. Immigration Authority simply wants to make sure that the applicant is committing enough investment capital that's appropriate for the type of business that they're starting up or they're buying. They want to make sure it's enough money to establish, develop, and create a successful business. So it's up to the applicant's burden to demonstrate that the investment capital for his or her type of business is appropriate and sufficient. So that's why they left the amount totally ambiguous. And typically, you have to show that the investment amount is more than sufficient to cover all startup expenditures, equipment, inventory, set up the business premises, all of that, plus a reasonable working capital to sustain the business operations after you begin operating. And whatever that amount is, you present it in immigration. Now, in my just more than 2 decades of experience, even if it's a low cost business, I would typically recommend as a general simple rule of investing at least $100,000 investment capital in the business. Now, depending on the business model, the appropriate capital may be more than 100,000. But if it's a low cost business, I typically will recommend at least $100,000 investment capital. And most of that do need to be spent on the startup expenditures before applying for E2 to show the commitment to the U.S. economy. And then you reserve a reasonable portion of that investment capital in the U.S. business account for future operating expenses. So that is the rationale behind this ambiguous definition. But I'll typically recommend at least 100,000, but it may be appropriate depending on the business model.
All right. Yeah, depending basically on the business model, it's how much people need to invest. Well, I think in that price range is there is a lot of people with the opportunity, with the option to do the investment, and then you can also connect people to a professional that can help them find like a good business or a business that they can work with to be able to get this right.
That's right. That's right. We work with very experienced business brokers, franchise brokers who understand E2 investors, foreign citizen investors. And so they understand targeting business models that's going to be suitable for E2 visa. You know, there's so many business models out there, and some of them are great, but not all of them are suitable. And there's a variety of factors to determine whether business is suitable for the E2 visa.
Well, that's great. I think that answered the question. And on my opinion, on my experience that I had on this is that I would recommend people also to find something that they know how to operate, or something that they probably enjoy doing, because it's gonna be a lot harder if they find or they acquire a business where they're gonna be miserable or something, you know. That's my recommendation in my case. I've been with my business, as you already know, you've been helping me. We've been talking about the renewal. And so
Yeah.
that's one of the things. If somebody doesn't like what the person is doing, imagine working 4 or 5 years for that same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot more difficult. But yeah, that was great. And then let's go to the second one. What type of business is best for the E2 visa? Is there any type of business that you better suggest people to start or buy?
Yeah, this is a great segue question to the previous question, what we were just talking about. There are several factors to determine whether a business model is ideal and suitable for the E2 visa. Number one, what we were just talking about, it needs to be a type of business that the applicant is actually interested, passionate, loves doing, because E2 is the entrepreneur visa. It does actually require the applicant to personally manage and operate that business. So number one, you want to choose a industry or type of business that you have a personal interest in, because that's going to be your life for the next several years living in the United States. You have to actually run the business. Number two, immigration will look at the applicant's personal background to determine whether they can credibly, successfully manage and operate that type of business. So if a person is starting like an independent business, then it should be something that related to their professional background. So there's some sort of relevance to show the immigration officer that they are knowledgeable, experienced to successfully manage and develop a business in the United States. This is especially important for a startup, because startups are more speculative. We don't know if it's going to be successful or not. So immigration officer is really looking at the applicant's background to see if he or she has the relevant track record to successfully operate that business in the USA. However, a lot of my clients, they go into new industries because they want something, a change in their profession, in their business life. So in that's certainly still very possible. You can go into an industry and where it's totally different from what you were doing before. Typically, I will recommend that they seriously consider investing in franchise brands, because the lack of experience in the industry could be compensated by the training, support, and successful business model of a franchise brand. We've been able to satisfy immigration officers that although my client didn't have the experience in the industry, their investment in a tried and true franchise brand can compensate for that lack of experience. Or if you go into an industry where the nature of business is pretty simple, so that whatever business experience you have back home, the general management, sales, marketing skills is very transferable. That's also doable too if you go into an industry in the USA where the business is very simple. basically a low learning curve. Second key factor in choosing the right business model is you want to focus on job creating business model. Job creation is a important relevant component of E2 visa. And this is especially important if your investment is in a startup business, new business, where either you haven't hired anybody yet, or you just started and hire one person, and you're projecting, you're showing in the business plan your intention to hire more people, create more jobs in the coming years. Well, in order for the immigration officer to believe in that intention, it is much more credible if the nature of the business model requires you to hire those people in order to operate and provide services to customers. So business models that could potentially be operated as a one-man or one-woman operation, like a consultancy, those face the highest risk if it's early stage startup, because immigration officer can't be assured that you actually will scale up and hire those people. So if you choose a business model that by its nature require you to hire people, then it is much easier to get an approval to satisfy the immigration officer of that job creating intention.
And that's a lot of information, a lot of very good information, and I know that's going to help a lot of people. Honestly, I'm very happy about that, and the way you answered it was very, very, very good. And one thing that comes to my mind is that you did a great job preparing the case and preparing all the details that make or made the case successful for me. And I know that you can do the same for a lot of people doing the right thing. Just guys, hey, whoever is watching this video, just follow what Bobby says. All right, just do what you gotta do to be successful. All right, and then let's move on with the other question. Question number 3 that we have for today is, when can I get the visa? How long does it take?
Yeah, great question. So the whole E2 visa process has 2 stages. First stage, you have to make a qualifying investment before you can apply. And how long that takes varies for different people and also business model. The simpler the business model, the faster you can complete a qualifying investment. On the other hand, if it's like a brick and mortar business where you have to build up a restaurant, that could be very time consuming. But if it's a simple service business, it could be set up within a couple of months, a few months, possibly. Once the qualifying business has been established, then you can apply for the E2 visa. And typically, most people would apply for E2 visa with a US embassy in their home country. If the applicant is already living in the USA in some other visa, they may be an option to apply for change of visa status directly in the United States. But if they're applying with a US embassy, which is most people apply with a US embassy, that process varies, depends on the embassy's processing time, and it just depends on how busy they are. But in general, it's typically about a 1 to 3 months E2 visa processing time at US embassies worldwide, at most US embassies. Sometimes it might be longer if they're super busy, or if there's extenuating circumstances such like additional security check. But for most people, it's going to be around 1 to 3 months processing time at the US embassies, in my experience.
Well, that's a good time. However, I remember I got it before COVID, and it took a lot. We hope that we don't have any more COVID or something similar in the future. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was challenging since the beginning because of the COVID, because we did it just right at COVID, in the COVID part. That thing just changed the world. Remember, it was crazy times.
That's right.
We got it done. We got it done. Thank you for that, because we got it done. We got it done. Something that I was also thinking is, let me see. So the question number 4 is, what if I'm denied? What happens if somebody gets denied during the process? You know, when after presenting the whole case and it's still denied, what happens after that?
Another great question. Although this happens very rarely, if the applicant makes a strong business investment based on following the experts' guidance. At least in my law firm's experience, we've had very high E2 visa success rate. But E2 visa decision is made by a human, individual visa officer who's making a judgment call on the viability of business and the sufficiency of investment. So once in a while, if the applicant unfortunately run into a very strict visa officer and denies the visa, well, the recourse to E2 visa denial is typically to reapply. There's no limit to reapplying for the E2 visa based on the same business, same investment, as long as the applicant can satisfy the reason for the visa denial. So if the visa denial is fixable, such as the visa officer wants to see a greater investment amount or more business development, proof of actual job hiring, job creation, employee hiring, or proof of actual customer acquisition, whatever is the perceived deficiency, if it can be fixed, improved, and the applicant can reapply for the E2 visa right away. There's no time limit or waiting period. However, if the visa denial is for a more permanent reason, like sometimes the applicant got caught in lying, or there's a prior visa violation, or have a criminal record, those kind of things, if the denial was for that, then it's more serious because there's nothing really you can do in most cases to change that fact. Then reapplying is not feasible. But as long as it's fixable, you can reapply. And we've done that before where some people apply at a very early stage of the business startup, and the visa officer they got was very strict and want to see that they actually hire somebody, kind of go further with business development. And then we went, and then the client hired a couple of people and got a initial customer contract, shows his ability to get customers, and then we applied and got an approval. So that's an example of how we're able to overcome an initial denial.
That's great. That's awesome. Awesome that people can reapply again. And we have a little time, still a little time here. When you were mentioning that somebody could have a new business, a startup, and also apply for the E2 visa, how can somebody start a business in the US to be able to apply for the E2 visa, but they are in another country? How they can come legally and start their business, start working on that business to have it in a good stage to be able to acquire the E2 visa? What you recommend about that?
Very good question. So if the prospective investor is outside the United States, typically the appropriate way to come here to make the investment is through the visitor's visa, B1, B2 visitor's visa. Certain nationalities are eligible for ESTA visa waiver to come here as a visitor. You would come here as a visitor. Now, when you come as a visitor, depending on what you communicate to the border immigration officer, they'll record your entry either as a business visitor or a tourist pleasure visitor. You want to make sure you properly explain your investment intention, be ready to assure that you know you can't work. All you're doing is investing, setting up the business, and you'll leave and go back to your home country to apply for an E2 investor visa with the US Embassy. So once you give the proper explanation of the investment intention to the border official, they will record your entry as a business visitor. As a business visitor, then you would be allowed to fully engage in investment. You can buy a business, you can set up a company, you can open a bank account, you can rent an office, you can apply for business license, etc. Everything necessary to finish your investment so you become eligible to go back and apply for an E2 visa. That's the typical. Now, there are some people who are already living in the USA. They're on a student visa, or they're on a work visa, or some other visa. And so typically, if you're on a work visa or student visa, as long as you're maintaining your visa, you're doing what you're supposed to. You're studying as you're supposed to on a student visa, or you're working for the authorized employer on a work visa. On the side, it is normally okay to engage in business investment activities on the side with the intention of then qualifying and applying for E2 visa once you made that investment. So as long as you're maintaining, complying with your current visa status, then you can do the business investment on the side. Can't work. I'm just talking about business investment and business setup.
That's great. It's awesome that people can do that. And then one thing that you recommended me and that I did, what you told me, is to apply for from my own country. And there are very good advantages because I've been able to go to my country. I've been able to go out of the country with my family for vacations. And all that is acquired because I did what you told me to do, which is apply from your country. So I got a 5-year stay and I can come and go as I like. When people apply here in the US, living in the US is a little different, right?
Exactly. And this is a very important distinction that people need to understand. So if you apply for and obtain your E2 visa from the US Embassy in your home country, depending on your nationality, you can be eligible for up to a 5-year E2 visa with multiple entry travel authorization on the E2 visa, meaning you can use the embassy issue E2 visa to travel freely in and out of the US. This is the most desirable type of E2 visa. Now, there are certain folks that are already living in the US, like I said, on a student visa, work visa, or whatnot. And then they choose to apply for a change of visa to E2 investor inside the United States without leaving. That's a possibility. Because some people, for them to travel to their home country, attend an interview is extremely burdensome and not feasible. Maybe they have kids in school. Maybe the business startup is very stressful and they can't really leave and wait a month or two in the home country. So they do a change of status in the US. That's a possibility and it's convenient, but there's a huge disadvantage. The approval for change of status to E2 inside the US is limited to a maximum of 2 years. And then the approval is merely a permission to stay in the US. It doesn't allow any international travel. So even if you get an E2 change of status approval in the US, if you or any dependent travels outside the US, the change of status approval gets canceled. And then you have to reapply for E2 visa all over again with the US Embassy before you can come back into the US. So you got to keep in mind that disadvantage. It pretty much like the change of status approval only allows you to stay here, work here, so long as you stay here. Departure will cancel, terminate the change of status approval. So everybody's different. Some people don't need to travel. I have a client say, I don't care. I don't need to travel. So change of status is perfectly sufficient for me. Great. So, but if you need travel, then you got to seriously think about applying with the embassy directly instead.
And then is there any changes in terms of time when somebody is applying for a two visa within the United States? Normally, you said that outside of the United States takes like a few, 3, 4 months, 2 months, but here is quicker,
Mhm.
or is it takes more time to get it approved or to change the status?
That's right. That's right. So very good question. When applying for change of status, U.S. immigration, they're called the USCIS, they actually offer two application options, a regular option and then an expedited option where they charge an additional $2,805 fee. Under regular option for change of status, they typically take multiple months, 3 to 6 months, sometimes longer, just depends on how busy they are. But as long as you timely file the change of status, actually you're allowed to legally stay in the US to wait for the change of status decision. But some people have an urgency to get the business started. So they'll pay the extra fee to US immigration for the expedited service. Under the expedited service, the US immigration will provide a response within 15 calendar days for the investor. And that could be either an approval, a decision, or a request for additional evidence. So they guarantee that 15-day response time. So that speeds it up significantly because regular processing could take 3 months, 6 months, maybe longer, depending on how busy they are. So a lot of my clients choose expedited processing. Unfortunately, this expedited option is only available for change of status. When you're applying with a U.S. embassy abroad, they only allow the normal regular processing based on first in, first out process. So that's why it ranges from 1 to 3 months, depending how busy they are.
Okay. How much you said is to expedite it? I couldn't hear very well.
Sure. It is an additional fee of $2,805.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been increasing. It used to be $1,400, and this year they bumped it up to $2,805. I don't know, due to inflation or whatnot. So that's what it is currently, and that's in addition to the regular filing fees.
The regular. Okay, got it. All right, we're about to finish. But before we finish, I want to say thank you so much again for your time. As I said again, you're a great person, and thank you because we're helping a lot of people that have many questions. And last thing I wanted to say, is there any funny or any experience that you would say it was completely out of the ordinary when you were working
Yeah.
with, just to put some funny thing here, like if anything happened when all these years that you've been helping people acquire the E2 visa?
Yeah, definitely. I've helped gotten more than 600 E2 visa approvals in my years. And there's one case that really stood out for me because it really touched my heart. I had this client on E2 visa. He opened a restaurant in a small town in USA, and he and his family, beautiful family of four with two lovely kids, they've been living in the US for over 8 years and just renewing their E2 visa. They're from a country where they have to renew every 2 years. And life is going great, and he's just an amazing guy. And all of a sudden, one night, his restaurant building caught on fire and burned his business to the ground. And he woke up in the morning to his life completely destroyed. That was their livelihood. That was the basis of their legal status in the USA. He frantically reached out to me. What do I do? And we mapped out a strategy. He's got to reopen it. And um, the scary thing was his visa was going to expire in about a little less than 2 years. And I was like, thank God we have a little less than 2 years. Can you get this reopened? And he's, I'm going to do my best. He's never reconstructed a whole building in his life. And the thing scary about E2 visa renewal is that you have to prove you've been operating the business continuously, actively for the duration of your E2 visa status in the United States. So I was like, my friend, you need to get this up and running ASAP. I know it's going to take a while. Let's just do our best. And unknowns to him, the small town, his customers, on their own started GoFundMe campaign for him, and also started a petition with the city to expedite his permits, construction permits, because they loved him. He was endeared by the community. They all rallied around him to a point where the local newspaper did a story on him. And eventually, the restaurant, it was hard. It was so complicated. By the time he got it open, it was 3 days before his visa expired. And we had to submit it. And I had absolutely zero evidence of an operating business for nearly 2 years. And I was like, under all normal requirements, we're doomed. We have no evidence of a maintenance of an E2 business for 2 years. But I demonstrated the GoFundMe, the news article, the petition by the community, each and every step of reconstructing a building and a restaurant, and beg for mercy. And this is life changing. They've been living here for 8 years, kids in school, livelihood. They don't even have a house in their home country anymore. Their life is in the United States. And they put in another couple of $100,000 to rebuild the restaurant. It's all in. It's just everything they have into the business, and it's all hinging on the approval of their extension. If denied, they're kicked out, and they probably won't be able to come back for violation of visa status. And then we just did regular processing because I told, don't do expedited, do regular processing. So maybe we can buy 6 months. If we get an RFE, request for evidence, we have 6 months of operation to show. Amazingly, under regular processing, we got an approval in 1 week.
Wow.
I was absolutely, yeah, regular processing, normally 6. And I think everything that we showed touched the heart of the immigration officer. So it made me realize, and I used to work for immigration more than 20 years ago on the other end, and forgetting that these are human beings. When you have extenuating circumstances and you really communicate that, on the other hand, this human being of an immigration officer actually has the power to forgive a lot if they believe you. So that was the story. I was actually nervous. I don't get nervous because, you just for over 2 decades, you're a pro. And no matter what, I've seen it all. But this case, so much was at stake. Kids in school, livelihood, everything. And I had no evidence of a real operating business. I was truly nervous, especially I love my clients. It's a personal thing for me. So when we got the approval, they celebrated. I celebrated. I did a little dance. I was like, thank God there's compassion and humanity, even by the immigration officer. So that's something I'll never forget.
Wow, that's a great story. Oh my goodness, that was great. That was great that you were able to experience that, and wow, 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 wow. It was really really touching for me too. I mean, it was great, great, great. But well, I think this is it for now. I mean, I think I'm pretty sure this is gonna help a lot of people. So again, I wanna thank you. We're gonna share Bobby's information. I'm gonna put it down in the information in the regular where I put the regular information about the video. I'm gonna put your phone number there, and your email and your team's information, so anybody can contact you as well. And or you can people watching the video, they can put any comments, and I'm going to share his information as well. Of course, I want everybody to get the best service possible in the US. And here is Bobby. All right, Bobby. So thank you so much. And hopefully, maybe in the future, we can have another one like this. I don't know. Have a great day. Thank you so much, Bobby.
Thank you, John. Loved it. Take care.
Take care. I really hope this video helps you, and I really hope that this also can make you make the decision if you would move to the US or not. Listen, just trust me. I would not recommend anybody that is not professional or that is not like very focused on what they do. So I was really happy, really working with Bobby's team, and also, I mean, Bobby is the person. And meet with him, contact him. I'm gonna put all his information down below. You can talk to him. You can call his office. You can email his office. Tell him that you saw the interview with John and all that, and he's gonna give you also very good treatment. I mean, he always does that, but just for him to know. Okay, so hey, if you're interested in business and the life in the US, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe. Thank you very much for watching the video and spending some time here. I really appreciate it. So I'll see you next time.